Michael McDonald, you've been one of the executive producers on ABC's American Crime since the very beginning. So now that it's sadly come to an end this season, I wonder if you could talk a bit about the legacy of the show as it is now.
Well, yes, we are very sad about the show not being able to come back. But the lucky thing that we have is that because it is an anthology, we get to complete a storytelling, and I feel really honored that we've been able to tell 3 very strong, powerful stories. And and as far as a legacy, the one thing I think that Felicity talked about it a lot in a recent thing about how we've changed the face of network television. And I'm not sure if that's 100% true, but I do think it was a bold, brave move. And I think it does, open up the network to be able to do things that have a voice, what I think the biggest legacy is that you are able to say something that may be controversial, and the fear of a backlash, the fear of public protest, the fear of people, not liking what you have to say, somehow affecting not ratings, but like boycotting or a public outcry of letter writing, that has dissipated. And I think that is what I think that does allow for this network in particular, but other networks I think will be willing to do things that are a little bit more controversial. I think when we went in that first year, there was a lot of concern that there might be, a letter writing campaign or somebody would be upset about what we were saying, and there wasn't, and the noise was all positive, not negative. And I think if there is any legacy, is that it's taken away that fear from the broadcasters, and particularly ABC, of doing things that might that are controversial, and that there are strong opinions on both sides of them. And that's what I feel that legacy is. I also think some of the things that we did, the show looked different, it felt different, it was more emotional, it was paced different. And I hope that has allowed some freedom in the storytelling of the networks. But I'm not sure. We'll see. I mean, I haven't seen. There hasn't been a duplication of what we've done that I've seen. I mean, I feel like we were working within the same realm as the streaming world and some of the premium cable. I don't necessarily have I seen that duplication. But hopefully there's a long legacy that in years people will still talk about the show and what it did and and the relevance of it at its time.
Well, I'm curious. Oh, that's a little loud. There we go. I'm curious because you guys did have a plan for a season 4.
Yes.
Is there any possibility, maybe it's a bit premature to ask this, but is there the possibility that you guys would still tell that story perhaps another place?
Yes. I mean, there's different things that we've talked about. There's different ways, the subject matter that we talked about, which I think has been talked out there about sexual harassment, the role of women in the workplace, the old boys club, like that sort of thing that we wanted to talk about this next season. I know there's a way to tell that story and still, do what we did with American Crime in some other fashion, whether it be on a different platform or in a different form. But yes, John and I will not give up on that story. We still think it's important, but it's also really rich. I think it would be fascinating to examine the truth of what women go through in modern day America, in particularly in business and industry, and the fallacy that that has gone away or is only in certain places. I think is prevalent everywhere. As you see every day, I think I pick up the paper and there's a new story about a new company that's got themselves involved in some situation. So yeah, we will tell that story. I promise. You'll see that story will come to life.
I'm glad to hear that. Let's talk a bit about this last season. You guys, as you said, you explored a lot of themes that you don't see a lot on network television, themes of racism, class, and exploring the term of what an American crime is.
Right.
Talk
right.
a little bit about that in the context of this last season.
Well, this last season was different in that we didn't have a central crime that either started out, both seasons. The first one was a murder that was immediately, and the second one was the revelation that there had been a specific crime, a specific evening, that, and everything kind of rippled out from there. And this year we wanted to examine the idea of the crime of servitude in America exists, and how we all are touched by it, and how one community, if you just take a microscope and look at one community, which we did in a specific, location set in North Carolina, how you could see that this crime was existing behind all these closed doors. And the other crime that I feel like the American crime that we were talking about was the disposability of these people and we had all these bodies in rivers that were just disposed of and talked about and not identified. And I think that's the crime that I know that's the crime that we wanted to examine. And I thought it was really brave of John to take that on and tell it in a much more sophisticated story, novelistic way, versus, the dun dun dun, here's your murderer and we're going to discover it. And I know that's a challenge for the audience to try to go along with the ride, but we got such a huge response. I think even more so than the previous two seasons, where people were just really riveted by the show, and they I also believe people were more comfortable in the way that we choose to tell stories, which is, a tapestry, more of a mosaic and not necessarily a linear crime-driven central story, but more of a reflection of a place and a time and I think people were really comfortable in that. And I think we spent a lot of in-depth time with certain characters, and that was in itself different. The third season was different. I think the third season was even more artistic and more cinematic in its storytelling.
You talk about the disposability of people. Can you talk a bit more about that? In particular, I mean, you see that in the characters that Benito Martinez plays, and I'm going to mangle her name, but Mickaelle, is that?
Oh, Mickaelle.
Mickaelle.
I call her Mickaelle because I managed to slaughter her name everywhere, but it is basically Michael in French and feminized, so Mickaelle, or she goes by Mika, but yes. And I also think the Mulvoy Ten character played, Shay, was also a disposable member of our society. So, in disposability, I think that humans and their bodies are treated like pieces of commerce. And even if you do pay them, which many people are not paid, they're disposable in that once their bodies are worn out, either physically or sexually, society doesn't have any more use for them. And they either they either are killed, or they die, or they just disappear. They just disappear because there's no value. Their bodies no longer have a value, and that in a way is slavery. That your body is the only value that you have. Their minds have no value, and that's what we really wanted to show. And then the opening sequence, you see Benito Martinez riding in a bus, and he looks out, and there's just this body on the side of the road, and we never talk about that body. Because that's how life is. And when he goes to the morgue to identify his son, there's a thick book of Hispanic men that are unidentified because their bodies are just tossed or left, and there's nobody to claim them because there's no value, to them anymore, because they're just part of an economic society, and that's it, and it was fascinating for me to find the truth behind that. The books we read, the articles we read, that how nothing we showed was in any way not reflective of what things that we'd actually read, or people we've actually talked to, or people who've actually walked in those shoes. It was very reflective of actual incidents and actual, people. So,
Yeah, and I mean, you talk about, the body that's found. I mean, this is someone who's a fruit picker. I mean, it makes you think about the human cost of the the things that we take for granted, you know?
Yeah. Well, yes. I mean, everything that you're wearing right now, that shirt you're wearing, the shirt I'm wearing, we don't know exactly where it came from. We know, remember the store or the, you know, the label, but where did it come from? And someone actually sewed, you know, either with a machine or by hand, these buttons on this shirt. And who was that person? And now I'm wearing them and it's on my body. So their blood, their sweat, their tears are on my body. And the payment that I paid was some dollars. And I'm demanding by the companies that I go by that I want to pay the least amount of money. So the only way they can make it for less is by paying the people less or not paying them at all. And so the food you eat is, you know, the demand. And we talk about this with the Hesby family, with Cherry Jones, you know, has a confrontation with the fruit distributor. The pressure on them to sell it, just cutting a penny off every pound is huge, because when you go into Walmart, you want to buy your fruit. You want to buy your fruit. You don't, you know, so yes, some people will go to Whole Foods or some people will go to Trader Joe's, but a lot of people go to Walmart or Costco and they want to pay, you know, they'd rather pay $1.75 than the $2. And that 25 cents is, you know, across the board is millions and millions and millions of dollars that is going in the pockets of the of the Walton family, of the Walmart. It's not going in the pockets of the workers, because they're still being paid by the pound or by the, you know, it doesn't matter. And then so the pressure is so huge because we're actually putting the pressure. We as consumers are putting the pressure on the distributors and the sellers to get it at the cheapest price. And when you push on that pressure, the only place that it can possibly explode out is through the human work and the payment that they receive, and that all is combined. And so there's no inflation in this country anymore. You know, it's zero, and it's because we're paying the same prices that we were paying for milk 25 years ago. We're still paying those same prices, but the people are living in the people that are working in those places and packaging are making less and less money, and that's because what we demand. So, you know, there was that big movement about blood diamonds in you know, that celebrities got on board, and some people stopped buying diamonds. They actually made a change. You know, the miners in Africa were literally human slaves that weren't even allowed above ground, and they called them blood diamonds. And so people, you know, had a huge reaction to it. And, you know, the sad thing is, like, you're not wearing your diamonds, but you're eating those tomatoes every day. You know, you're getting them in your salad and you're getting them in your ketchup. I mean, ketchup is the biggest condiment in this country, and that's all by tomatoes. That's all picked by people that are in these environments that you see Benito. So I only buy ugly tomatoes from the farmer's market now, but you know, but I still go to restaurants and I can't tell where that food came from exactly. You know, it may say something, you know, on the menu, but you don't know. So it's a little bit, it's hard to make the change, but you know, I think just opening people's eyes to it might make some change, or at least open some conversations.
Putting a human face to it, I think, is what helps, and that's something that the show has done throughout each of its seasons. Is it puts a face to these crimes.
Yeah, exactly.
I think it bears to talk about a bit more. You mentioned the cinematic quality of this season, and that's something that each season has done really well, is that it's been very visually and editorially ambitious, and has taken a lot of risks in that way. Can you talk a bit about that?
Well, you know, the way that we shoot the show is, you know, each season feels a little bit different, but there's sort of the same vocabulary which we use these big, wide shots that are beautiful and show the scope of the world. And then we go in really, really close, and we go into people's faces, and we get in there. And like right now when I'm talking to you, I'm only really seeing your eyes, and that's all I've seen, and that's how I'm interacting with you. I can look around and see there's a poster back there, or there's a door open, but that's not how it is. And so we wanted to have our audience experience what it's like to be in these scenes and in these conversations. And when you're in a group situation, sometimes, you know, if there's two other people sitting there, you may be talking, but I'm looking at the reaction of the person behind you, because they're actually giving you the emotion that you wanted. So we wanted to do that. We wanted to feel like we're in with these people. And, you know, that's why we don't chase dialogue. I mean, it's really, when I watch like a regular television show, it almost feels there's a big distance for me because I'm not really in the scene with these people. You know, so that is one of the qualities that we have. We also like we don't piece it together as much as we shoot it to experience it, like it's a play almost, or we want to get it as much to feel alive. And I also think we love to put the environments. We have the little pieces of like the people's feet when there's ants crawling. And we didn't necessarily decide to have ants crawl up Connor's feet in the one scene we was talking to Richard Cabral, but we captured that because it was real and it feels real. And so, you know, and then we also, you know, we're very spare with our music, but we use it specifically. We don't go wall-to-wall music because our life isn't, I don't have a soundtrack running in my life. There are moments where music is appropriate, but I think that, you know, it's not the wall-to-wall music that you see. And you know, I really think it's about, we also, the way we shoot the show, we really let the camera roll and let people, the actors, give us non-verbal, you know, scenes. And there's so much that is in silence because so much, we're not always talking. And I think that's why the show feels different. And one of the things that John really, you know, gave us as a gift is the ability to sit and watch people without, you know, 80% of our communication is nonverbal. It's about the way you hold your hands or the way that you're sitting or the way that you're looking, or, you know, you sit and you say something and you watch someone react. How their face reacts is giving you way more clues of what they're really feeling than anything that's going to come out of their mouth. So we're not chasing dialogue, and that's what I love about the show, you know. And I love experiencing it as a viewer, but also just as a producer to bear witness to that.
The show was nominated at the Emmys both years in a row for Best Limited Series. A lot of the cast was nominated. Regina King won twice in a row. What did that kind of recognition mean for you and for the American Crime team?
Well, you know what? The numbers, we have been challenged this year in particular, but for us, the recognition that, you know, because you feel bad when the numbers aren't great. You feel like, did you fail? Did you do something wrong? Was there, you know, what could you have done differently? But sometimes it's just it's not the right place or the right time or the right time slot or the right marketing. But the recognition that we received is like, you know, it's like a great big pat on the back, like, good job, you did what you wanted to do. And I do feel like when I look at the other shows that have been nominated, I'm huge fans of what they do. You know, like I love what Ryan Murphy does. I loved The Night Manager. I just feel like those are people at the top of their game, and to be literally sitting at the table with them at the Golden Globes in particular, I couldn't believe it. But then I realized, and also to be a network show at that table, to be a network show was it just feels good. And I always, before this happened, I was like, when people say, oh, it's such an honor to be nominated, I thought they were just being nice and it's a politically correct thing. But it is really to be chosen as one of the best 5 limited series out there and in the world. And because American television is everyone is the top of the game, and to be in that room and with those people is truly, it might be the best honor I've ever received in my life. It'll probably be in my obituary, you know, but this show, and I'm so proud of that. And it was quite that morning when you hear that, you just feel that's the best day ever, you know, because all the rest with the dressing up, going there, that's all, you know, a big show. And, you know, and when Regina won, of course, we all leaped out of our seats, just because she's such an amazing woman as a person, and she's given so much to the show and given so much to us, and she's so talented, and she's this body of work, and she's truly one of the hardest working women in Hollywood, and also one of the biggest talents. And for the world to recognize that, I mean, it's just amazing to me. I mean, I would give them all, you know, John and I don't need anything. If I could just give Anna and Miko and Connor and Felicity, you know, Tim and all of them, I wish they could all get a statue, you know, because I think they deserve it. You know, they've done such amazing work and are so brave. And you know, I hope as the last season, because it is the 3rd season, any sort of recognition like Felicity or Tim or Lili get. Part of it is look at what they did. Like, look at how they did 3 different seasons and 3 amazing different characters that they brought to life. I mean, I'm just in awe of Felicity this last year of Jeanette, because she's a character unlike anything that she's ever played. And she started in a place of weakness and she got strong and then she went back. And to see her just be, Felicity's a very strong woman and has always played very strong characters. The first 2 seasons, she was the strength of the shows. In this season, to play that character so quietly and so, just this quiet little mouse, and then try to fight out of that system, and she couldn't. It just, it was an amazing transformation of her, and I hope people recognize that, yes, season 3 was great, but what Felicity did over the 3 seasons is a feat. She's it's like a Broadway actress. She's done 3 great plays, And Tim and Lili and, Regina, of course, and Benito. Benito has just done the same thing for us. I mean, we're so blessed to have him back this year and to play a character that is so different than anything. I mean, one week he's playing the President of the United States, and the next week he's working as a farm worker. It's like what a chameleon that man is, So the honor really is that nomination, to be truthful, and it makes you feel that the community recognizes.
Well, Michael, thank you so much, and congratulations on American Crime.
Thank you for all your support. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hopefully you'll see our version of season 4 somewhere sometime.
I look forward to it. I really do. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.